Maria had always believed that life would eventually get better, even if she could not imagine how. She grew up in a tiny village where roofs leaked during rain, and the roads turned into mud every winter. Her family lived in a small, old house that her father had built long before she was born. There was nothing fancy about their home, just 2 rooms, cracked walls, and a kitchen that smelled of wood smoke because they still cooked on a handmade stove. Her mother worked at a local tailor shop, sewing clothes for neighbors. Her father worked odd jobs sometimes in the fields, sometimes repairing tools, whatever small work he could find. Maria was the eldest of 3 siblings, so she often helped her mother with sewing or helped her father gather firewood. She never complained. She had learned early in life that complaining would not change anything. What she did instead was dream. Since childhood, she dreamed of a life where she didn't have to worry about money, where her family could eat full meals without counting every coin, and where she didn't feel trapped in a place that offered no future. After finishing school, she wanted to continue studying, but her parents simply could not afford it. They needed her help at home, and she understood, even though her heart ached for more. As the years passed, things didn't change much. Most people in the village lived the same way. Quiet, simple, and struggling. Some left for the city, hoping to find better work, but Maria couldn't leave her family like that. She stayed, helping her mother stitch clothes late into the night, and helping her siblings with their schoolwork. She tried to stay positive, but deep inside, she wished she could escape. Maria often watched people come and go from the small bus station near their village. She would stand there for a few minutes each time she went to buy groceries, watching strangers travel to places she had only heard about. Sometimes, she imagined herself sitting on one of those buses, starting a new life somewhere far away, where nobody knew about her struggles. One day, her friend Aisha visited her with a surprising story. Aisha had recently traveled abroad and married a man she met through a mail-order bride agency. She spoke about it with excitement, telling Maria how different her life had become. She now lived in a cozy house, had a comfortable life, and felt respected. She encouraged Maria to consider the same path, saying that many women from small towns found loving partners through such programs. Maria listened carefully. She didn't judge Aisha's choices. Instead, she felt a spark of hope she hadn't felt in years. Could such a path work for her too? Could someone from a different world accept her, even if she didn't come from money? Maria wasn't sure, but the thought stayed with her for days. Finally, after a long night of thinking and staring at the ceiling, she decided to try. She felt nervous, creating a profile for the agency. She wrote about herself honestly, her childhood, her dreams, her hobbies like reading and cooking, and her deep wish to build a peaceful life with a partner. She didn't hide the fact that she came from a poor background. She believed that if she was going to start a new life, it must be with truth. Weeks passed, and she received her first few replies from men living in different countries. At first, she felt excited and hopeful. She read their messages carefully and responded politely. But the excitement faded quickly. Once the men asked about her family and financial background, their tone changed. Some stopped responding. Others hinted that they preferred someone better established. A few said it more directly that they wanted a bride from a wealthier family or someone with higher education. Maria tried not to take it personally, but the words cut deep. Every rejection felt like a reminder of everything she lacked. She didn't have fancy clothes, didn't speak with perfect grammar, didn't have an impressive job. All she had was her honesty and a good heart. It hurt to realize that it wasn't enough for some people. Still, she tried to stay strong. Her mother noticed the sadness in her eyes and asked if something was wrong. But Maria just smiled and said she was tired. She didn't want to worry her family. A few more weeks passed, and Maria received another message from a man who seemed interested. He sounded polite and friendly at first. They exchanged letters for a few days, but soon, he also asked the same question about her financial status. When she told him the truth, he replied only once more before disappearing completely. Maria's confidence slowly began to break. She wondered if she had made a mistake joining the agency. She wondered if her dreams were too big for someone like her. She even thought of deleting her profile and forgetting the whole idea. One afternoon, she sat on a bench outside her house, watching the sky slowly turn orange as the sun set behind the hills. Her siblings played nearby, their laughter echoing through the quiet street. Maria tried to smile, but she felt a heaviness in her chest. She whispered to herself, "Maybe this isn't meant for me." But something inside her refused to quit. She had faced difficulties her whole life, and yet she had never given up. She told herself that she was not defined by money or status. She reminded herself that she had survived hardships with dignity. She promised herself that she would try a bit longer. The next morning, she woke up early as usual, swept the front yard, helped her mother prepare breakfast, and went to check her messages one last time before giving up. She expected nothing new. She expected another empty inbox or another rejection. But that day, something unexpected happened. A new message appeared from someone she had never seen in the list before. His name was Ethan. The message was simple, short, and without complicated words. He introduced himself as a rancher living in a quiet countryside far from big cities. He wrote that he didn't have a glamorous life but lived peacefully with his animals and wide fields around him. His message didn't ask about her money or status. Instead, he asked how she was doing and what made her smile. Maria felt something shift inside her, something warm, something gentle. She read the message again and again. For the first time, someone wasn't questioning her background. Someone wasn't judging her for what she didn't have. Someone simply wanted to know her. She took a deep breath and replied. Little did she know that this one message would change the direction of her entire life. Ethan had never imagined that life would feel so quiet. When he was younger, the ranch he lived on was always full of sound, his father's voice calling out instructions, his mother humming while she cooked, the horses neighing, the wind brushing against the fences. But now, after many years, the ranch felt different. It still had the same fields, the same barns, the same sunrise every morning. But the silence felt heavier. He lived alone ever since his parents passed away. The ranch had become both his pride and his burden. Every morning started early. Before the sun rose, he fed the horses, checked the fences, watered the plants, and fixed whatever had broken during the night. His days were full of work, yet his heart always felt a little empty. He didn't have friends nearby, and the nearest town was far away. The people who lived there were kind, but they were busy with their own lives. Most days, Ethan's only company was the sound of the wind and the soft steps of animals walking around the land. Even though he was strong and hard-working, he often felt lonely. There were evenings when he sat on the porch, drinking tea and staring at the stars, wondering what life would look like if he had someone to share it with. His parents had always dreamed of seeing him marry someone good-hearted, someone who would bring warmth into the home again. But Ethan never found the right person. He wasn't the type to go to crowded places. He didn't enjoy parties or loud gatherings, and he rarely met new people. One evening, after finishing his work early, Ethan turned on his old computer. He usually used it to check the weather or order supplies, but that day he didn't feel like doing any of those things. He felt restless, like something was missing. He remembered hearing from a neighbor about online bride services that connected people from different countries. At first, Ethan laughed at the idea. He thought it wasn't for him, but as days passed, the thought kept returning. He didn't want to spend the rest of his life alone, and he wasn't meeting anyone naturally. So with a hesitant heart, he finally opened the website his neighbor had mentioned. He didn't expect much. Maybe he would see a few profiles. Maybe he would close the site after a few minutes, but something in him needed to at least try. He scrolled through many profiles. Most of them looked similar. Beautiful photos, short descriptions, polite words, but nothing touched him. He wasn't looking for someone perfect or glamorous. He wasn't searching for someone who lived a luxurious life. He wanted someone kind, someone real, someone who understood the value of simple things. Then, without warning, he stopped scrolling. He found a profile that made him pause. It wasn't the picture that pulled him in. It was the sincerity in the girl's eyes. The photo showed a young woman named Maria. She didn't pose like others. She wasn't wearing fancy clothes. Her smile was small, shy, but honest. Her profile description was simple and heartfelt. She wrote that she came from a humble family, that she worked hard, and that she believed in loyalty, patience, and kindness. She didn't try to impress anyone. She just told the truth. Ethan felt something warm in his chest, something he hadn't felt in a long time. He clicked on her profile and read everything carefully. Her words felt real. They felt like they came from someone who had struggled but never lost hope. Her background didn't bother him at all. In fact, he admired her honesty. Most people tried to make their lives look better than they really were. But Maria didn't. She simply shared who she was. He sat back in his chair, thinking deeply. He wondered whether she would reply if he wrote to her. He wasn't good with fancy words. He didn't know how to write romantic sentences. But he knew how to be genuine. And maybe, he thought, that was enough. After a long moment of hesitation, he began typing. His message was short. He introduced himself, talked about his ranch, his simple life, and how he enjoyed peaceful days. He didn't try to impress her with money or grand stories. Instead, he asked her about her dreams, what she liked, and what made her happy. He ended the message with a gentle line. "I hope you are having a good day." Before he could change his mind, he pressed send. The next day, he checked his messages before starting his chores. He didn't expect a reply so soon, but to his surprise, there was a message waiting. When he opened it, he felt a sudden rush of joy. Maria had replied. She thanked him politely and shared a few details about her day. Ethan smiled as he read her words. There was a certain warmth in her writing, simple, soft, and genuine. They began exchanging messages regularly. At first, the conversations were brief. They talked about daily routines, family, favorite foods, small details about life. But slowly, as they grew more comfortable, their messages became deeper. Maria shared stories about her childhood, her siblings, her struggles, and her hopes. Ethan shared memories of his parents, stories about animals on the ranch, and moments when he felt lonely. He noticed how carefully Maria wrote, as if she didn't want to make mistakes. He could tell she felt nervous. So he always replied with patience, making sure she never felt judged. He could almost imagine her sitting somewhere far away, typing each message with a shy smile. Days turned into weeks, and their connection grew stronger. Even though thousands of miles separated them, Ethan felt closer to Maria than he had felt to anyone in years. He looked forward to her messages after long days of work. Her words made the ranch feel less empty. When she shared her worries or fears, he listened with empathy. When she shared her dreams, he encouraged her with gentle words. Sometimes, Ethan would finish feeding the horses and sit under a tree, thinking about her. He didn't know what she looked like in real life, beyond the single photo. He didn't know how she sounded when she laughed, or how her eyes looked when she was excited, but he felt her kindness across the distance. And that kindness touched him deeply. One evening, after a particularly tiring day, Ethan received a longer message from Maria. In it, she shared something personal, that many men had rejected her after learning she came from a poor family. She wrote that she felt unworthy at times, like no one wanted her for who she truly was. Ethan felt his heart tighten as he read those lines. He wished he could sit beside her and tell her in person that she deserved kindness, respect, and happiness. He wished he could erase the sadness she had experienced. So he wrote back with sincerity. He told her that a person's worth wasn't measured by money, and that anyone who judged her for her background was missing something important. He told her she was brave for being honest and that he admired her strength. His message was simple, but it came from the heart. Maria replied with gratitude, and Ethan felt their bond deepen even more. Weeks passed, and their messages continued. Ethan found himself thinking about her throughout the day, when he fed the horses, when he repaired fences, and even when he drank his morning tea. Maria, too, shared that she thought about him during her daily chores. A quiet friendship had turned into something more meaningful. One morning, as the sun rose over the fields, Ethan made a decision. He didn't want their connection to remain only in letters forever. He wanted to meet her, to see her gentle smile in person, to know if the warmth he felt through messages would be even stronger. Face to face, he sat at his desk, took a deep breath, and wrote a long message to Maria. He told her that he would like to meet her, but only if she felt comfortable. He said she could visit the ranch for some time, see his life, and decide for herself if she wanted to be part of it. He ended the message by writing, "There is no pressure. I want you to feel safe and respected. If you want to come, I will welcome you warmly." After sending the message, he felt both nervous and hopeful. He didn't know what her answer would be, but he knew one thing: he was willing to open his heart. When Maria finally replied, Ethan felt the world pause for a moment. She agreed, and just like that, their lives began to change. Maria's journey began early in the morning. She packed her small suitcase with trembling hands, choosing her clothes carefully even though she didn't have many options. Her mother hugged her tightly, whispering prayers for her safety. Her younger siblings watched her with wide, curious eyes, not fully understanding why their sister was traveling so far away. Maria tried to stay strong, but her heart felt heavy. She was excited, scared, hopeful, and unsure, all at the same time. At the station, she looked at the long road ahead and wondered again if she was making the right choice. Meeting Ethan felt like stepping into a completely new world. She had never traveled so far before, and every passing hour felt unreal. She kept replaying their messages in her mind, the gentle way he asked about her day, the warmth in his words, the sincerity that made her trust him. She told herself that even if things didn't go perfectly, she had to at least try. Hours later, when the bus finally reached the nearest town to Ethan's ranch, she stepped off with nervous steps. She looked around, trying to spot him. Everything seemed so different. The air felt cleaner, the sky looked bigger, and the roads were surrounded by wide open fields. For a moment, she wondered if she would get lost. Then she saw a man standing beside a pickup truck. He looked simple, wearing a clean shirt, faded jeans, and dusty boots. He wasn't handsome in a dramatic or movie-like way, but there was something sincere in his face, something steady, kind, and quietly strong. He looked nervous too, shifting his hat from one hand to another. When their eyes met, he gave a small, genuine smile. "Maria?" he asked softly. She nodded, unable to speak for a moment. He stepped forward and helped her with her suitcase. He didn't try to impress her with fancy words. Instead, he simply said, "I'm really glad you came." And somehow, those simple words eased her fear. During the drive to the ranch, the silence between them wasn't uncomfortable. Ethan talked about the fields they were passing, the animals he cared for, and the peaceful life he lived. Maria listened quietly, occasionally asking a shy question. Ethan noticed how she looked out of the window, taking in every detail of the countryside as if it were a dream. He liked seeing her curiosity. It made the drive feel shorter. When they reached the ranch, Maria stepped out of the truck and looked around in surprise. She had never seen so much open land in her life. There were wooden fences stretching far into the distance, a large barn, small sheds, and a cozy-looking house with a porch. Birds chirped in the nearby trees, and the breeze carried the soft smell of grass and earth. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Ethan smiled, rubbing the back of his neck. "It's simple, but I hope you'll feel comfortable here." She felt her heart soften a little more. Inside the house, everything was neat and clean. The living room had warm colors, and the kitchen smelled faintly of fresh bread. Ethan showed her to the guest room, a small room with a soft bed, clean sheets, and a window that overlooked the fields. Maria placed her suitcase down, feeling grateful. For the next few days, Maria slowly adjusted to the new environment. It felt strange waking up to the sound of roosters instead of traffic, and seeing open sky instead of crowded streets. Ethan respected her space, never making her feel pressured. He asked her what she liked to eat, whether she needed anything, and showed her how everything worked around the house. Maria found comfort in his thoughtfulness. She had expected awkwardness, but instead she found small moments that warmed her heart. He saved the ripest fruits for her. He made sure she had warm tea in the evening. He taught her how to open the barn door without straining her hands. And every night, they sat on the porch for a few minutes, silently watching the sun fade behind the hills. One morning, she surprised him by waking up early and helping him feed the animals. Ethan had gone to the barn, expecting to work alone, but found Maria already there, her hair tied back, holding a small bucket of feed. She looked shy but determined. "I thought maybe I could help," she said softly. Ethan's eyes softened. "Only if you want to." She nodded. Together, they walked into the barn. Ethan introduced her to the horses, gentle, calm animals with shiny coats. At first, she was scared to touch them. But Ethan guided her gently, showing her how to stroke their necks. One of the horses nudged her lightly, as if greeting her. Maria laughed, a small, pure laugh that made Ethan smile without even realizing it. As days passed, Maria learned more about ranch life. She helped collect eggs, water the plants, and prepare simple meals. She realized how peaceful the place was. There was no rush, no noise, no judgment, only the quiet rhythm of nature and the simple routine Ethan followed. Each day brought new moments that drew them closer. There were times when they found themselves laughing at small things, like when a chicken escaped its pen and Maria tried to catch it. Or when Ethan tripped slightly over a bucket and tried to pretend nothing happened. Their laughter echoed through the yard, light and warm. There were also times when they talked deeply. One evening, as they sat on the porch sipping tea, Maria told him about her family, how hard they struggled, and how she always tried to stay strong. Ethan listened without interrupting. His eyes filled with understanding. Then he shared his memories of his parents, how they built the ranch, how they taught him kindness, and how he missed them every day. Neither tried to impress the other. They simply shared their truths, and with each truth, they grew closer. Maria had expected to feel judged for her background, but Ethan never once made her feel small. He admired her strength, her humility, and her willingness to learn. He noticed how she smiled politely even when she was tired, how she kept trying even when things were new, and how her presence made the house feel alive again. Maria, in turn, admired Ethan's patience, sincerity, and gentle nature. He was strong without being harsh, hard-working without complaining, and kind without expecting anything in return. She began to look forward to each day, eager to see what new moment they would share. One evening, after a long day of work, they sat outside again. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink. Maria felt comfortable beside him. Wrapped in the quiet warmth of the evening, Ethan cleared his throat gently, looking at her with a softness she hadn't seen before. "Maria," he said quietly, "I know we come from different worlds. I know you've had a hard life. But I want you to know something." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "You bring peace into this place. You've made the ranch feel alive again. And I'm grateful." Maria's eyes glistened, not with sadness, but with a feeling she hadn't experienced in a long time, being valued. She looked down for a moment, then replied, "You've been kind to me in a way no one has been before. I feel safe here." Their words hung between them, gentle but meaningful. They didn't rush anything. They didn't make promises they weren't ready for. But something unspoken had formed a quiet bond, a growing connection, a feeling neither could deny. As the final light of the sunset faded, Maria realized something surprising. For the first time since she arrived, she didn't feel like a visitor. She felt at home, and Ethan, watching her from the corner of his eye, felt the same. Their story was no longer two people exchanging messages across different worlds. It was becoming something real, something that would soon shape the rest of their lives. The days on the ranch began to settle into a calm, comforting rhythm. Maria woke early, helped with small chores, cooked simple meals, and spent long evenings talking with Ethan on the porch. She felt herself changing in ways she didn't expect. Her fear had softened, her doubts had grown lighter, and she smiled more often without even realizing it. Ethan's presence made her feel safe, and the quiet countryside made her feel peacefully grounded, like she finally belonged somewhere. Yet despite the growing comfort, there was still a question hanging silently in the air. What would happen next? Would she stay longer? Would she return home? Would Ethan ever express what she felt he was quietly holding inside? She didn't want to rush anything, but she also wanted clarity. She didn't want to guess forever. Ethan, too, felt the weight of the unspoken. He wasn't someone who acted quickly or carelessly. He moved through life with thought and sincerity. But now, with Maria around, the house felt warm again. Her laughter filled the empty spaces. Her gentle voice made the ranch feel less lonely. He found himself imagining a future where she stayed, not as a guest, not as someone passing through, but as a partner. But he worried. He didn't want her to feel pressured, or think he invited her just because he was lonely. He wanted her to stay because she wanted to, not because she felt she had to. He wanted her to choose him freely. One evening, after a long, warm day, the sky turned a soft mix of pink and gold. The two of them sat on the porch, their mugs of tea warming their hands. The breeze carried the soft smell of grass. A peaceful silence sat between them. Ethan held his mug tightly, gathering his thoughts. He took a slow breath and said, "Maria, may I tell you something important?" She turned toward him, her expression gentle but curious. "Of course," she replied softly. Ethan looked at the horizon for a moment before speaking. "You've brought happiness here. More than I expected. More than I deserve." He paused, unsure how to continue. "These past weeks have been special to me. I feel lucky that you came." "No." Maria felt her heart flutter, but she stayed quiet, letting him speak. He continued, "I don't want to make you uncomfortable. I don't want you to think you owe me anything. But I want you to know, I care about you. Truly." His voice was soft but steady. Maria felt tears prick her eyes, not from sadness, but from a feeling she didn't know how to describe. No one had ever spoken to her with such sincerity. Ethan's voice deepened with emotion. "If you choose to go home, I will respect that. If you choose something different, I will respect that too. But if you can imagine a future here, with me, then I would be honored to share my life with you." Maria slowly placed her mug down, her fingers trembling slightly. She took a deep breath. She wanted to speak, but emotions tangled in her chest. She didn't want to rush into anything, but she also didn't want to hide her feelings. She looked into Ethan's eyes and whispered, "I didn't expect to feel this way. I didn't think someone like me could be so respected or cared for. You've been kind from the first day. You never judged me for my background or my simple life." She paused, gathering courage. "Being here feels like peace, and being with you feels right." Ethan's eyes softened, relief washing over him like warm sunlight. Maria continued, her voice shaking slightly. "I don't want to leave. I want to stay. I want to build something real with you." Ethan's heart felt full. He didn't rush to hold her or say too many words. He simply nodded gently and said, "Then we will build it together." The decision didn't change everything overnight, but it changed the way they looked at each other. Their conversations grew longer, their smiles deeper, their shared moments more meaningful. They began talking openly about the future, how the house could be arranged, how chores could be divided, how they could support each other. A few days later, Ethan took her to the small town nearby. He introduced her to the local shop owners, who greeted her with warm smiles. The town was small, but the people were kind-hearted. They welcomed her without judgment, asking friendly questions and offering help whenever needed. Maria was surprised. She had feared that people might see her differently, but instead she felt accepted. At the local cafe, Ethan gently placed his hand over hers and said, "This town, this place, they're all part of my life. And now I want them to be part of yours too." Maria smiled shyly. It still felt unbelievable that someone wanted her in their world, not out of pity, but out of choice. Back at the ranch, their bond continued to grow. Maria surprised Ethan one morning by preparing a traditional dish from her village. The simple meal brought a new joy into the house. Ethan enjoyed it so much that he asked her to teach him how to make it. They cooked together, laughing when flour landed on the counter or when Ethan chopped vegetables too slowly. Every moment felt light and genuine. In return, Ethan taught her how to ride a gentle horse named Clover. At first, Maria was terrified, gripping the saddle tightly. But Ethan walked beside her, guiding her patiently. When she finally gained confidence and the horse carried her smoothly across the yard, her laughter rang brightly through the air. Ethan watched her with admiration, thinking how her joy made everything prettier. The fields, the sky, even the old fences. One evening, under the soft glow of lantern light, Ethan finally gathered the courage to take the next step. He brought Maria to the porch, where a small table was set with warm tea and freshly baked bread. The night was calm, the stars glowing above them like tiny lanterns. Ethan took a deep breath and said, "Maria, you've changed my life in ways I never thought possible. I don't need grand promises or perfect plans. I just want to walk through life with someone kind, loyal, and genuine. And that someone is you." Maria felt her heart swell, tears gathering in her eyes. Ethan gently continued, "If you are willing, I would like you to be my partner, my wife, my family." Maria covered her mouth with her hands, overwhelmed. Not once in her life had she imagined someone saying such words to her. She nodded slowly, tears slipping down her cheeks, and whispered, "Yes, I want that too. With all my heart." Ethan didn't rush to celebrate loudly. Instead, he stepped closer and held her hands gently, as if holding something precious. They stood there quietly, letting the moment settle into their hearts. In the weeks that followed, they prepared for a small, simple wedding. Nothing grand, nothing too decorated, just a gathering of a few townspeople who had become their friends. Maria wore a modest white dress, donated by a kind neighbor, and Ethan wore his best shirt. When they exchanged their vows, their voices trembled with sincerity. It wasn't a lavish event, but it was filled with warmth and love. Maria felt like she was standing in the middle of a dream she never expected to have. After the ceremony, Ethan whispered to her, "Welcome home." That single line brought more emotion than any long speech ever could. Their life together wasn't perfect, no life ever was. There were days of hard work, days of tiredness, days when chores piled up, but they faced everything together. Maria learned new skills, helped Ethan with ranch decisions, and even made extra income by selling homemade crafts in the town market. Ethan supported her dreams, encouraged her, and made sure she always felt valued. Slowly, their home became filled with laughter, shared meals, warm conversations, and small, meaningful moments. Moments that stitched their lives together with quiet love. Maria often thought about her old life and the struggles she had faced, and every time she did, she felt grateful. Not because her past was easy, but because it had led her here, to a place where she was loved not for wealth or status, but for the person she truly was. And Ethan, every night before sleeping, would look at her and silently thank life for bringing her into his world. She had turned his lonely ranch into a home filled with heart and hope. Their story wasn't about perfection. It was about two simple people choosing kindness, trust, and companionship. And in that choice, they found a love far greater than anything they ever expected.